Part 1. Problems in the start. The sun. Nice, right? Take a look at it. Not too long. So neuroscience has a bit of a problem in that it can't figure out exactly how consciousness arises. One of the major theories on this is that it comes from the physical electric meat mush of the brain. The sun creates its energy through nuclear fusion, mostly between hydrogen atoms, using intense pressure and heat to fuse together their atomic nuclei into helium, and generating vast amounts of energy in the process. One of the main consequences of the ham circuit theory of consciousness is that it implies that all matter and energy could exhibit some level of sentience, which could mean a whole host of objects any sane person would consider unconscious could have a mind in some form, including subatomic particles. Most processes within the brain are in some way either electric or chemical, and so deal with the valence electrons which form a cloud surrounding the outer portion of the atom. Under normal circumstances, when heated to extremely high temperatures, the electrons of a substance can be stripped away, turning it into a sea of freely moving ions and electrons called plasma, which is what the sun is mainly made of. So assuming these electrochemical processes are the root of consciousness begs the question, how's the sun feeling? Part 2. Justifying nonsense and answering the question. Plasma has some interesting properties. Unlike gases, where particles and their electrons are spread far apart from each other, making it difficult to conduct electricity, plasma, despite also being relatively spread out, is a very good conductor. This is because it's made up of a soup of positive ions and electrons. These components move around very differently to each other, with the positive ions having vastly higher mass than the electrons, hence making them move slower, and of course a different charge. Put together, plasma's high conductivity and non-uniform particle movement means it is prone to instability, especially electromagnetic instability, and especially in large amounts like in the sun. This instability is responsible for the solar flares which will take out our power grid, and based on the assumptions about consciousness made earlier in the video is what would result in the sun's mind. But the sun's experience is still uncertain at this point, so to find it out, let's talk about iron. Iron is the most abundant element on Earth by mass, and is especially common in rocks. In this state though, it isn't really doing that much. Since the rock has not undergone any selective pressures that would encourage self-preservation, on account of not being alive, the iron in it is not being used by the rock to further its existence or increase its chance of reproduction, instead just kind of sitting there, randomly spread and immobile. Iron in the human body though is doing a whole lot. It is incorporated into hemoglobin and serves an essential role in carrying oxygen around the body. Doing this, it is highly organized and mobile, all in an effort to keep the life going. If consciousness comes from a purely physical source, such as electricity, then like iron, it would exist in both living and non-living forms. But when found in life, it would be built to help the organism survive. We could see examples of this in how key parts of our mind, like our senses, memory, and emotion, also play important roles in keeping us alive. The sun, even if conscious, probably wouldn't have these traits though. Just as people and rocks both contain iron, yet rocks don't make red blood cells while people do, people in the sun may both be conscious, but while people express this in a way beneficial to their survival, the sun, since it isn't living, wouldn't. Putting it all together, besides knowing that something big would probably be going on, given the sheer amount of electrical movement in the sun, and that said something would likely not have the features of a living consciousness, there isn't really a lot else we can figure out about the sun's mind. Part 3. Final Statements. This entire video is an exploration of an idea I personally don't believe. That being that consciousness comes from a purely physical source, electricity, and can exist outside of life. As a result, the evidence for this idea is not here, and was never meant to be. Nor is it much of anywhere else, as conscious experience is a notoriously difficult thing to explain to the point of being labeled by some as the hard problem, and the idea that it is even possible to prove a comprehensive theory of it is up for debate. The other ideas mentioned in this video, like evolutionary psychology and particle physics, do seem provable, and I would highly recommend you to learn more about. For all these reasons,